The presidency's called the move troubling and says South Africa needs to renegotiate trade terms with the United States. Well, President Donald Trump's justified the move by accusing South Africa of charging levies as high as 60% on US goods. South African businesses are already feeling the strain as the market reacts to the new tariffs. While the country remains committed to a mutually beneficial relationship, officials warn that such measures could block trade and economic growth. Well, joining us now is Dr. Oscar van Heerden, Senior Research Fellow at the Centre for Diplomacy and Leadership at the University of Johannesburg. Good afternoon and thanks for joining us. Well, given the United States' decision to impose a 31% tariff on South African goods, what are the potential long-term effects on South Africa's economy and trade relations with the United States?
Well, Juliet, obviously, in a few hours, macro shock internationally for more than 60 countries, as you know, including South Africa. And what that means is that there is definitely going to be a global recession. It's almost a foregone conclusion. And that means that there will be a reduction of reduced commodity prices. There will be reduced exports. Both will negatively impact on South Africa, as you indicated. So all around, going forward, we're looking at a period, if you have to liken it to 5 years ago during COVID. This is what the global economy is finding itself in. And that does speak to the fact that at home, when we talk of the budget, the 2025 budget, it's no longer relevant. I know we've just come through a very tumultuous period of getting it approved, quibbles around that and so forth. But with this new international regime of tariffs, I think the budget needs to be relooked. We need to come up with an emergency budget. We will have to look at interest rates, precautionary, perhaps cutting it just in terms of the fallout, because it is going to be quite severe.
How do you assess President Trump's justification for these tariffs, particularly his claims about trade imbalances and South Africa's higher tariffs on US goods?
Well, we can argue about various products. We can talk about tit for tat, whether it's the automobile sector, whether it's the citrus from South Africa. That's not really the crux. The crux of the matter here, as we've seen in the case with China, is that Trump is a disruptor. He comes with extreme measures, and what he wants is to force you to come to the negotiating table so that he can renegotiate these trade relations, which he feels is disadvantageous to the United States. Of course, the South African position is correct. It needs to be mutually respectful and it needs to be mutually beneficial. Otherwise, it can't be skewed only in the direction of the United States, because that's not going to be okay either. Yeah. So it's a tough one going forward. But this is what I would call a last desperate measure from the United States, from the Trump administration, because they are realizing that they are drowning in debt. The empire is declining, and this is the way they want to reset the global economy. But it's not going to work, unfortunately.
Now, the US administration has criticized South Africa's policies, including the Expropriation Act and its stance on land reform. How likely is it that these tensions will lead to further economic or diplomatic fallout between the two?
Yeah, once we diagnose the problem properly, Julie, we will find out that it actually has very little to do with domestic law. It has very little to do with our domestic policies, and it has everything to do with the fact that South Africa has taken Israel, a very close ally of the United States, to the International Court of Justice for genocide. And they've made it clear in their executive order this is one of their main concerns. So I think it's a lot of smokescreen, talking about the way we treat our Afrikaners, land expropriation, and so forth. That's not really at the crux of what is going on here. At the crux of what is going on here is wanting to teach South Africa a lesson, because it dared to take Israel to the International Court of Justice, as well as the fact that South Africa is the junior partner of BRICS.
Yes.
And Trump problem with BRICS, and he wants to teach BRICS a lesson by using South Africa as an example.
Thank you very much. A lot to think about. Thank you very much for your views on that. That was Dr. Oscar van Heerden, Senior Research Fellow at the Centre of Diplomacy and Leadership at the University of Johannesburg.